Werner, the official ladder of the NCAA basketball championships and the official ladder of professional contractors everywhere. Werner, #1 in ladders.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hi, it's Greeny. Here's what we've got for you on the Best of Mike and Mike podcast today. NFL free agency news and tons of it. Revis, Graham, Eagles and Rams, much more with Adam Schefter and Bill Polian in our studio. Plus, Christian Laettner. Did you hate him? Wait till you hear him.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Darrelle Revis and the New York Jets worked out a deal to bring the best cornerback in the National Football League back where he belongs. Mark Schlereth, my dear friend Stink, played 12 years in the NFL, won 3 Super Bowls in those years, is in for Golic on this morning, and I'm just telling you now, you cannot rain on my parade. This was what I wanted. I wanted this exact thing to happen yesterday, and it happened. The Jets are stockpiling corners. And you know what? If you don't have a quarterback, you better stockpile corners, because if you can't outscore them, you better stop them. And right now, between Darrelle Revis and Buster Skrine, and now they're negotiating with Antonio Cromartie, I'm in a very good mood, so go ahead. Take your shots. I don't care.
See, I went from the standpoint of I love Darrelle Revis. He's the greatest corner in the history of cornerbacks right now. With what's going on in this league, he's just been tremendous. A very pivotal piece of a championship in New England. I get that. I just wonder if the New York Jets did not realize the new NFL mantra and they got it screwed up a little bit, which is it's a quarterback-driven league. I'm thinking they thought it was a cornerback-driven league and forgot that they need somebody to throw the football. Hey, stopping people is great, but you can't stop them all the time. You've got to be able to turn the ball around and score. But I will say this. Todd Bowles, a former teammate of mine with the Washington Redskins, Todd Bowles, a great defensive coordinator, now the head coach of your New York Jets. What does he err on? The side of aggressiveness, man. There is nothing that he hasn't done other than be aggressive in the NFL when it comes to play calling on the defensive side. You saw that in Arizona last year. It was incredible what they were doing defensively. Right up until the end of the season when they lost their quarterback and they had to play a bunch of backup quarterbacks. And what happened?
2 quarterbacks.
Yeah. And what happened to them?
Well, they fell off the face of the earth. Yeah.
You can't play defense 78 snaps a game and expect to be good. So I hope, upon all hope, because I want Todd to have success, I hope they figure out offensively what they are, what they're going to be, and who's going to be that guy that's the trigger man for them. Because if they don't figure that out, you can stockpile every corner in the league. You're still not going to win games. You're going to be 8-8 like you are every year.
I don't disagree with that. But what I will say is yesterday that guy wasn't available. You couldn't walk out yesterday to the tree and pick the quarterback that you wanted. Would you have been happier right now as a Jet fan if they'd gotten Sam Bradford? I wouldn't. People in Philadelphia are like, Ryan.
What about Nick Foles? Would you have been happy with Nick Foles?
Yes, that's what I really wanted. So I am disappointed that trade happened yesterday because I really did have it in my mind that was going to happen, that the Eagles were going to package Foles and something else to move up with the Jets to 6 to get him. The Eagles, obviously, that trade, look, yesterday was insane, completely insane. Let's start at the end because we'll work our way backwards. Okay. Let's start with Revis, and then we'll work our way back to those trades.
Perfect.
I watched 90 minutes of you guys yesterday at NFL Live starting right there at 4 o'clock, and it was terrific. Everything was terrific, and obviously those trades were coming fast and furious at the beginning, and the big question was, what will happen with Revis? What will happen with Revis? And for those of you who did not hear, if you're just waking up, you're just hearing the news, Revis and the Jets did work out a deal, 4 years, $39 million guaranteed dollars, most of it in the first 2 years. So when you look at a guy, Revis, who's going to be 30 years old this year, and you say to yourself, well, does this take it? This is not Robinson Cano with a contract until he's 40. Really, it's a 2-year. The money is massively front-loaded into the first 2 years.
Right.
All figures to still be a great player.
All NFL contracts are front-loaded to be about, regardless of how long they're signed, they're 3-year deals. And at the end of 3 years, the teams, they come to you all the time and say, hey, either take this pay cut or we're going to let you go.
Right.
And that's how it is. And the one thing that has bothered people about Revis is he's had the preemptive strike saying, hey, I'll play by contract after year 1 or year 2. I want a new deal. So he's basically turned the tables on what NFL franchises do to every player they sign long-term.
You couldn't be more right. In fact, you have taken the words out of my mouth, or at least set me in the direction I want to go in. The National Football League and the people who run the NFL are so smart that they have actually convinced the fans, their own fans, that a guy who was looking out for his own money is a bad guy.
Right.
That this is a bad thing to be doing. Darrelle Revis, he's all about his money. Oh, really? Find me the person who isn't. Aren't you all about your money? I know I am. We're all about our money. The National Football League is a league where the player's average career is 3 years long, right? They have non-guaranteed contracts. If they fall down and hurt themselves in training camp, they get cut with a little injury settlement. The second they have a bad year, they're going to renegotiate their contracts down or cut them. And oh, by the way, you can look forward to probably waking up in pain every single day for the rest of your life if you play long enough. So, all that said, a guy trying to maximize as much money as he possibly can is a mercenary and a bad guy. It's hilarious. They've convinced the fans of that. Forget about the owners saying that. The fans now think that.
Pot, let me introduce you to Kettle, because there's nobody that has the interest of their own money at the heart of who they are than NFL owners and NFL franchises. I mean, those guys, they'll protect it at all costs, and yet you're right. They have completely flipped the table because we root for laundry, right? We root for our team. So it's easy to make the player, you said something a long time ago, it's easy to make him the villain. You said something a long time ago that always stuck with me. We're used to seeing people that live on the hill in glass houses in big neighborhoods that are gated and say, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Those guys are real good. But the players live in a fishbowl. It's easy to point to those guys and go, that guy stinks. That guy's not loyal. That guy's not a good guy. That guy's a mercenary. It's easy to do that, and they have the NFL has certainly banked on the fact that the fans will turn on a player in a heartbeat because that's a guy that's an easy target.
The NFL tried to charge Katy Perry to play halftime at the Super Bowl. Okay, she didn't do it, but they tried. So Darrelle Revis is a genius. He's brilliant. He has beaten the system. He has done what almost no other NFL player before him who didn't play quarterback ever did. He has maximized his earning potential. And, oh, by the way, he's a magnificent player. You know what? Do you know what he gave up in the playoffs this year? Pro Football Focus put out a grading of every one of these signings. He played 3 playoff games this year for the Patriots. They won the Super Bowl. Do you know what he allowed personally? What his man in 3 combined games?
I know in the Super Bowl he had a 3-yard touchdown completion after he got picked by a ref. But beyond that, no, I have no idea.
He allowed in 3 playoff games a combined total of 3 catches for 25 yards. That's what he allowed in 3 playoff games. Darrelle Revis is a difference-making player. Do the Jets have a quarterback? No, they don't. But they have Darrelle Revis now. Adam Schefter.
Well, this is all about the money. Let's be honest. Darrelle Revis was going back to New York to become the highest-paid cornerback in NFL history. And when you look at it, that's exactly what he's going to become. Nobody has done a better job of maximizing his value in the NFL than Darrelle Revis. And when the Jets are giving him $39 million in guaranteed money, which is significantly more than the New England Patriots were willing to pay, then you're going to go take that deal and you're going to finish out your career where you started it for the richest contract. And yes, they had to pay more. They had to pay considerably more than anybody else, including the New England Patriots. But they didn't mind because this changes the landscape of the AFC East and the AFC.
Well, here's the difference, though, with Darrelle Revis and just about every NFL player that has ever played the game. He has maximized the dollars. But you know how he's done it? He's gambled on Darrelle Revis.
Yeah.
That's what he's done. I'm a great player, and I'm not fearing injury. I'm not fearing not playing well. I'm going to go out here and gamble on myself. And most guys, myself included, don't have that kind of confidence. I don't want to gamble on myself because there are the risks of injuries. There are those things that will happen to you. You can have a down year. And so you know what I'm going to gamble on? Security. Most guys want security. Most guys hate the franchise tag. Why? Because you got to gamble on yourself. And there is no security. I want a long-term deal because I want the security. That doesn't fear, or he has no fear of that. It doesn't scare Darrelle Revis. And that's why he's been able to maximize like no other player before him. He has maximized his deals because, man, that dude don't have a fearful bone in his body when it comes to his talent and his ability to play.
And now, this is how smart he is. When he is now arriving at a stage where he can see his professional mortality, he takes the long-term deal. He gets the long-term contract. I misspoke. It's not a 4-year deal. It's a 5-year deal. But it's a 39. The big number is $39 million guaranteed dollars, and 30 of those are in the first 2 years. So really, it's front-loaded to the first 2 seasons when you figure he should still be a great player. It's a magnificent, in my opinion, it's a fantastic acquisition For the Jets, we are presented here on Mike and Mike by Progressive Insurance. They'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. We're just getting rolling here because that was the last of many huge deals that got made yesterday, but I think you can guess where we're going in 60 seconds. There was one team that has everyone, and I do mean everyone, scratching their heads. And we'll try and figure out what they're doing in exactly 1 minute after a word from Silver Car. Stink, renting a car at the airport can be terrible. You race to the counter, there's always a line. Then you got endless questions, and there's all these upsells. Do you want to prepay for gas, for a GPS, for insurance? And then the car you expected is never the one you get. Say goodbye to all of those car rental hassles and say hello to Silver Car, the game-changing rental car company that lets you avoid the hassle and drive a spectacular silver Audi A4 for as little as $59 a day. There's no rental car roulette where you have to drive whatever's on the lot. With Silver Car, it's always a silver Audi A4. Every time. Fully loaded with nav, Wi-Fi, Sirius at no extra charge. Just pick any Silver Car on the line, use your phone to unlock it, you drive away for as little as $59 a day. Go to silvercar.com, download the free app, enter our name Mike as the promotional code, you get $50 off your first Silver Car rental. Download the free app, enter the promo code Mike, get $50 off your first rental with silvercar.com. That's silvercar.com. If you don't like that song, I have bad news for you. I'm planning on playing it a lot today. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. In an hour from now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, we'll bring in Phil Sheridan, who covers the Eagles for ESPN.com and NFL Nation, and we will try to figure out what in the world the Philadelphia Eagles and Chip Kelly are doing. I will say this. When they traded away, first of all, they traded away Deshaun Jackson. I tried to understand it. And then he traded away Shady McCoy, and I tried to understand it. And he let Jeremy Maclin go, and I tried to understand it. And I don't understand any of them. But it was yesterday when he traded Nick Foles for Sam Bradford that I finally said, okay, either this guy is a genius or he's completely out of his mind, because I don't get it at all.
Okay, first off, let me dispel the genius rumor. I've heard genius, okay? Mm-hmm. I've heard guru, offensive, whatever you want to put on there. Mastermind. Yep. Okay, let me just say this right now. Genius and NFL are mutually exclusive events, okay?
Yeah.
From the time I was 15, at every meal, I gorged myself to be big enough to play in the NFL, to weigh close to 300 pounds. And then you know what I did? I strapped a thin piece of plastic on my head, and I slammed my head into other 300-pound men with thin pieces of plastic on their head. That does not take genius. That's stupidity. So you don't coach in the league or you don't play in the league if you're a genius. Don't get enamored with your own intelligence, because that's the first thing that will cost you your job. And that's the direction, in my mind, that Chip Kelly is going. He has lost his mind. You know, if it works out, I will bow down and I will praise his intelligence for all things football related. But at this point, I understand systems. Systems are great. Man, I played in some good systems. I played in some great systems. Bottom line, you have to have good players to execute any system. You know, I always look at the New England Patriots. Do they have a system? No, you know what their system is? What are you not good at? And we're going to attack it. Week in, week out. 1 week, we're going to run the football with some guy named Gray that you've never heard of and get 200 yards rushing, and then he's going to be on the bench for the Super Bowl because he didn't play. Right? The next week, we're going to spread you out and we're going to throw it all over. Wait, 2 tight ends. Let's do that. You know, let's attack the seams with our 2 tight end system. I mean, they don't have a system. Their system is, what are you not good at, and let's expose that. Yeah. Don't get enamored with your own system and your own intelligence, because that's the first step off the plank to the gators underneath. That's like Dr. Hook, right? Or, I mean, not Dr. Hook. Captain Hook. Dr. Hook was spending the night together.
Exactly.
Whoa.
But let's not digress. I know what you're talking about. You're walking the plank. I understand what you're saying. I completely agree. A very smart person once said to me when I was first started covering the National Football League, he said, every system in the NFL is designed to work. No one ever designed a play and the system and said, if this works absolutely perfectly, we're going to lose 56-3. Every system is designed to work. Right. You have to have the players to make it happen. Every single play is designed to go for a touchdown. But there's a defense on the field, so it doesn't always work out that way. So, yeah, you can have a system. Listen, I don't want to listen. Sam Bradford wasn't that good when he was good. I mean, that's the problem. When Sam Bradford was at his best, what was it anybody saw that made you say, "Oh yeah, we got to have that guy"? I mean, he was the number one pick in the draft. He won a Heisman. I'm not talking about in college,
right? But
in the NFL now, if he was coming to a team that was loaded with talent, you could say, "Well, the Rams never had a lot of offensive talent. They had a good running back behind him in Steven Jackson for part of that time, but they never had great talent around him." Okay, I'll buy that, but they don't have great talent around him in Philly now. Who do they have around him? Right. They didn't get Frank Gore. They've traded away or let go all of their good players. If he was coming to a team that had Shady McCoy, Jeremy Maclin, and Deshaun Jackson on it, I would say, okay, let's see what Sam Bradford can do with great players.
Let's see what he's really.
They've gotten rid of all their great players.
Let's see what he's really made of. I mean, at this point, I fully expect them. Derrick Rose has had an ACL and some knee injuries. Let's sign him, right? I mean, that guy's explosive. He's had a ton of injuries. Sam Bradford has. I think he's played in the last 2 years, 7 games. He had 2 ACL reconstructions.
Yeah.
Kiko Alonso, he's not going to be ready till training camp. He had an ACL reconstruction. Yeah. I mean, I'm fully waiting for my iPhone to ring here because I've had a bunch of ACL reconstructions. I mean, just like, hey, eventually they're going to call me. Hey, my system, you can play. You know, I mean, hey, I'm ready, Chip. I got my phone.
I don't get it. Bradford has missed 39 of 80 possible games in his career. I'm not knocking a guy for that. He's been hurt. It's not like he's soft. I mean, he got his knee torn up. It happens.
Right.
But everyone always says, Peter King, I think, was the one who phrased it, the first step to being a football player is being able to show up for work.
Right. The best ability is availability.
And he hasn't been able to do it. Exactly. So, I mean, that's a factor. And then the other factor is, even when he was available, I don't think the whole world was knocking themselves out to say, boy, this guy is great. And on the other side, I think the Rams have a chance to be really good.
Sure.
Because they still have the 10th pick in the draft. And I have seen mock drafts where Amari Cooper falls there. Now, if you've got Foles and you've got all that talent they have put together on the 2 lines of scrimmage.
And Trey Mason was great last year. He really came into his own as a rookie.
And then all of a sudden you put Amari Cooper out there on the side. I mean, they could be really good. So I love what the Rams did. There's no question the biggest winner of the day to me was Seattle in their trade with New Orleans. I don't understand that one at all. At all. I don't care what your salary cap situation is in New Orleans.
Right.
If you're giving up Jimmy Graham, you're starting over again because he's a player entering his prime who was as good as any player in the league at his position. I personally would take Gronkowski, but whatever. I mean, you're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham is as valuable a player as there is in the NFL, and he's young. So if you're giving him up, then what in the world are you doing?
You're just in salary cap purgatory is where you found yourself as a franchise. I understand that. The one thing that scares me about Seattle now, certainly Jimmy Graham, from a matchup standpoint, is as good as it gets in the National Football League. From a red zone standpoint, as good as it gets. He can run the seams. I mean, he is a mismatch nightmare. He is a non-participant when it comes to blocking people, right? I mean, like I always said, just because you play like a wide receiver, if when it comes to blocking, you shouldn't be paid like one when you're a tight end. So inline situation, motion, blocking people, that's not his forte. So hopefully he gets better at that. Hopefully, he can get better at that in Seattle, and they require him to do that. The thing that scares me about this for the Seattle Seahawks now, you just lost 2/5 of your starting offensive line. Carpenter went to the Jets. It's a good pickup for them. Right?
Yeah.
And now they've also traded Max Unger. Now, he missed 10 games last year with injuries, but that's a guy who's a Pro Bowl center. He's a very good one. And you've lost 2/5 of an offensive line that's basically part of your football team or your mantra of your football team is beast mode. We're going to cram it down your throat. You just lost a real thick part of that. That scares me a little bit. When you start, for me, football-wise, you should build a team from the inside out. When you start getting enamored with the periphery players and you start ignoring the line of scrimmage players, guess what happens to your football team? It goes upside down. Because if you can't win the line of scrimmage on a consistent basis in this league, you don't win football games.
I hear you. I understand that. But I would also say that they traded the second to last pick in the first round for Jimmy Graham, for crying out loud. Now, I understand Max Unger, and I understand, they lose Carpenter as a free agent. Jets paid him a lot of money. And I know that a lot of people raised their eyebrows at the amount of money they paid him. He apparently struggles in pass protection, which they didn't do much of in Seattle because they run that unorthodox offense. But listen, you have forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But it seems to me that if you've got Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch running that read option, and you've got Jimmy Graham running down the middle of the field,
with the play action stuff and all the track
that's about
stuff,
as dangerous as anything I could ever possibly think of.
He instantly becomes by far their best target, their best matchup weapon on the offensive side of the ball without question.
He becomes the best matchup weapon. He becomes the best matchup weapon I can ever think of them having. I mean, we're looking up to Steve Largent. I mean, when they went to their first Super Bowl, who did they have that was like this guy, Jimmy Graham? I think that because New Orleans had such a down year, to some degree, people are not remembering just how good that guy is. He's as good as it gets.
And he was banged up a little bit last year. Yeah, from a matchup problem standpoint, you're 100% correct. At that position, there's nobody better.
I think that they were a huge winner today. So we're going to take a quick break here. We'll keep rolling with this thing. Obviously, this was an enormous day in the National Football League with huge ramifications, and our coverage is just getting started on Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Mike and Mike.
So I'm obviously celebrating the homecoming, if you will. I run into Ubaldo in the hallway, our angry camera operator from Philadelphia. Greeny. He's got that very distinctive, Greeny, I don't know what this guy is doing. He is going to be the most reviled figure in the history of Philadelphia sports.
He's got to be angry.
Our angry camera.
Oh, he's got to be really angry.
The anger quotient in Philadelphia is high today. The happiness quotient on Mike and Mike is high today. And the great Adam Schefter is in our studio. And that's only one reason for us to be celebrating this morning. Hello, how are you, Schefter?
You have big reasons to be celebrating this morning. Congratulations on Darrelle Revis there, Greeny.
Please tell me I was the first person you thought of when you saw the news yesterday.
You know, I happen to have a few very good friends who are incredible Jet fans. Jet fans are great fans. And you were one guy I thought of. I've got a former camp counselor who I thought of. I've got a friend who I've brought up to you before who has a dog named Revis who's been in mourning for the last 3-4 years while Revis was on his cross-country caravan to Tampa and New England and now is back home so that the dog is within the family's good graces again. That made a lot of people happy. And I think the reaction was the Jets paid through the nose. They paid top dollar for Darrelle Revis. Darrelle Revis has done an unbelievable job at maximizing his leverage throughout the course of his entire career. And this guy emailed me and he said, he said, the Jets overpaid, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, that's, you don't care. They paid what they paid, and it doesn't matter because you got the guy you wanted, right?
Okay, on the subject of the Jets, and you're 100% right, and Greeny's 100% right, there were no quarterbacks out there to address that quarterback need, so they went corner. They're also talking to Antonio Cromartie, Buster Screen, who's a very good player out of Cleveland. They signed him at the cornerback position as well. But what is the plan of attack from a quarterback standpoint and getting yourself a backup in there? Because everybody seems to be gone now. Sean Hill with the Vikings. It looks like Hoyer, right, with the Texans. Is there anybody out there that they covet right now that they're chasing?
Well, the key word that you use there is covet. Is there anybody they covet? No, there's nobody that they covet out there. Are there options?
Is there a plan? Okay, give it the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are guys out there that they'll take a look at. I think at some point the name Ryan Fitzpatrick will surface. I mean, he's in Houston. They're going to sign Hoyer, we expect. So then Houston has Hoyer and Mallett, and then Fitzpatrick would become expendable. You've got the draft. You've got Geno Smith. There are guys. It's not as if they're going to go out and find the answer at the quarterback position today. That's not going to be the case. But they understand that. You can't do everything in one day. There weren't a lot of quarterback options out there this year, and they'll be in the draft, maybe at number 6, being that has the furor died down in Philadelphia on them trading up on Marcus Mariota, or is that now heated up? Where's that at?
Here's how I read the moves from yesterday. And listen, Schefter, I mean, I think everyone is trying to guess what Chip Kelly is doing at this point. I read yesterday as Chip Kelly saying, I'm not going to be able to get Mariota. This is not going to happen, so I'm going to go find myself a quarterback I can get. Because I have to believe, and you will tell me, I have to believe that as a trading chip to try to get up there would have been more interest in Nick Foles than there will be in Sam Bradford, if only based on Bradford's contract, even overlooking his injury history and the potential upside of Foles. Am I right in that?
No. Well, here's the thing. They gave up extra picks. They gave up the better draft compensation.
I know.
So, to me, I've corresponded with a few people. Although yesterday's such a whirlwind that you're all over. You don't get to concentrate on any one area as much as you'd like. But the prevailing sentiment that I got back is, first of all, my gut reaction was, they gave up enough, so much, that it tells you that Sam Bradford is Chip Kelly's guy.
Right.
You don't make that trade if you don't have a belief in Sam Bradford. That was my first reaction.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other people texted saying it's exactly what it is, and people forget. Sam Bradford at one point was the #1 overall pick in the draft, and there were teams that loved Sam Bradford and raved about his abilities. And you've got an offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, and Pat Shurmur, who was Sam Bradford's head coach in St. Louis. So if they're going out and giving up the compensation that they did for Sam Bradford, you know that it's coming with an incredible endorsement from Pat Shurmur. So you factor all that in. I've said all along that the price, said it yesterday, the price to go up to get Mariota was going to be exorbitant. Now, you could go make anything happen. Are you willing to give away 3 #1 picks, 2 2s, 2 3s, whatever it may be, because it would have been a lot. And I don't know that he was willing to say, I don't think we can get there, so much as he just said, this is a quarterback, Sam Bradford, that we really like and we really believe in. I'm going to go make this happen right now. And you know what? That's the route that they decided to go.
And you mentioned the #1 overall pick a few years ago, and people forget that. People also forget that Jamarcus Russell was a #1 pick overall, and people loved him too.
But you know what? Bradford has had an injury history. And I'm trying to think, somebody was talking to me about this yesterday, one of the GMs in the league, but he was saying how Drew Brees at one point was discarded because of his injury history, and you've got a shoulder injury. He was coming off major shoulder surgery, so nobody wanted him. Sam Bradford's coming off all these knees. He had 2 ACLs. He's had a shoulder, so people don't want him. Sam Bradford came out of college with far more natural ability than Drew Brees. Of course, Drew Brees is a self-made man, and he had ability. But the point was, sometimes quarterbacks just turn a corner, and I think that's the hope and belief that Sam Bradford will do that, and we'll find out whether he does.
I hear everything you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with any of it. Now, let's spin it to the other side. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance, the one and only Schefter in our studio with his Subway Fresh Take. It would seem to me that if you're bringing in Bradford, you're going to run a more conventional offense because that would seem to suit him. And if you're going to do that, wouldn't it be nice to have LaShawn McCoy and Jeremy Maclin to run that offense with, as opposed to letting them go because my system is the only thing that matters and I don't need superstar running backs and wide receivers to run it?
Well, that's a different question. That's a different point. And you look at that offense right now, and I thought going into free agency that the Eagles were the most interesting team and situation in the league. And I think there's some other ones now that have also emerged that are really compelling as well. But, yeah, who is playing wide receiver today? Who is running the football? I guess Sam Bradford's playing quarterback, and Chip Kelly's a brilliant coach, and he knows so much more about football than I could ever imagine and hope to dream to. But you have to wonder where some of this production is going to be coming from.
Why did Frank Gore decide not to go there?
There are a few things. I believe, again, we make decisions in life, and you go by your gut. He just didn't have a good feel. Like, he told the Eagles, I'm going to go there. And the Colts were after him even before the Eagles lined up that agreement with him. Chuck Pagano is somebody who Frank Gore really likes, and the Eagles stepped in with a lot more money at that point than the Colts were willing to offer. And Frank Gore went and decided to go do that. And I think that's the kind of running back, by the way, that Chip Kelly's looking for, like a more of a power runner. And he spoke to people over the weekend. He's like, I told the Eagles, I don't feel good about this. Like, it doesn't feel right. Whether that was the city, the system, the organization, I really don't know. But I know that a lot of decisions are gut feelings. And his gut feeling told him, I do not belong in Philadelphia. And because you're not allowed to sign during that 3-day tampering period, you have other teams continuing to call. I've had teams tell me that they've never seen a year where there have been more people who have gone against their word, like players saying, yeah, I'm intending to come to you, only to change their mind because other teams can keep calling. Like, National Signing Day doesn't start until 4 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday, so until then you've got everyone else recruiting the guy.
One of the things that I had, I guess, speculated, and it's pure speculation, but it's got to raise kind of an eyebrow of concern, if you will. You've got Shady McCoy basically taking a shot at the organization. It's nice to feel appreciated now that I'm in Buffalo.
Yep.
Reports from Sal Palantonio said that Nick Foles was excited to be out of Philadelphia.
Yeah, pumped. What was the word that he used? Thrilled to be out of Philadelphia.
Thrilled to be out of Philadelphia. You've got Frank Gore that had an agreement to go to Philadelphia. All of a sudden, cold feet, gut feeling, whatever the case may be. Are you hearing anything out there that says guys just aren't really sold on Chip Kelly and that organization.
Well, I'll say this. The spotlight is going to be square on him and that organization now. And you're going to hear more and more of this, and the questions aren't going to go away. And there's only one way this is going to stop. Only one way. They go out and win football games.
Right.
And if they don't in that city, it's going to be a tough existence and tough sledding. And so they're at a critical juncture here. And you've seen this happen so many times before with so many teams and so many head coaches where they come into question. And there are other players that they've also gotten rid of who've also said things that I've been aware of. So, I mean, it's coming at them from all directions. And I think that there are a lot of people who are disgruntled. But if you go out and win football games, it doesn't matter. So we'll find out whether or not these decisions are right come September.
Shefty's in studio with his Subway Fresh Take, the new Subway Simple 6 menu, 6 subs, 6 meals, $6 every day. Subway, eat fresh. We have an hour of Shefty here, but he's going to need to keep working the phone. And in exactly 1 minute, I will tell you one thing I saw during your 90-minute special yesterday that I think was my favorite moment in the history of ESPN.
That's
because
amazing.
it was such a great glimpse into how this stuff works. It really was. We'll do that in 60 seconds here. Right now, a word from 1-800-Flowers. So many people celebrating birthdays in March. As I mentioned, it's my wife Stacey's birthday today. Give a gift that is fun, memorable, and impressive. They will love the birthday flower cake from 1-800-Flowers.com. This birthday flower cake looks exactly like a real cake, but it's actually handcrafted from fresh flowers. It even comes with candles. It's delivered in a cake box by a local florist. It's only available from 1-800-Flowers. It's one of the most popular gifts. And because you are listening to us, 1-800-Flowers.com has a special offer. It's a free upgrade. Order a large birthday flower cake for the price of a small, only $29.99 for a limited time. It's available for same-day delivery. It's backed by their 100% Smile Guarantee. For a free upgrade on the birthday flower cake and other great offers, go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or mobile device. Click on the radio microphone in the upper right corner and enter Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and enter Mike, or call 1-800-Flowers, and if you do, make sure you mention our name, Mike. That's a chorus of fans of the Jets singing welcome back to Darrelle Revis, who returns to the Jets on a 5-year deal, $39 million guaranteed dollars, the overwhelming majority of that in the first 2 years. I love it. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Adam Schefter in studio with his Subway Fresh Take all for the hour here. Stink is in all morning long for Golick. And my favorite moment yester's so Stacey and I, my wife, we watched the entire 90 minutes.
Stacey even watches that?
She watched the whole thing. She's a Bears fan. She's a tad disheartened by some of the recent. She actually looked at me and she said, "We gave you Brandon Marshall for a 5th-round pick. If you get Darrelle Revis, this is going to be my worst nightmare."
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. We have a little, we had like a little wager this year with the Jets and the Bears when they played each other. Whatever. The point of it is, she was fascinated watching you and Mort on the set, constantly on your phones. I mean, just constantly on the phones. And as I said to her, this is the job. This is what's going on. Shefty doesn't break all of these stories by accident. And at one point, and this was my favorite moment, you actually turned your back to the cameras. I've never seen that before, but Shefty's on the phone. He's talking to somebody. Susie Colbert's trying to run the camera, and all of a sudden Shefty is facing in the other direction. And I said, this is what we should be all the time. Let people see the way this stuff happens. It's not an accident that if you're on Shefty's Twitter feed, you are getting every story before anybody else.
There was another moment where literally Morton and I get a text about this Jimmy Graham stuff. We've been trying to track it down all afternoon. We were on the phone with various people getting denials and lies and whatnot. But anyway, we're tracking down this stuff, and I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody, and Susie comes to me as she's talking with Bill Polian about a free agent. I've never had this happen on TV ever. And she said, "And Adam, what are your thoughts?" And I had no idea. Right. No, I was immersed in my own world. I had no idea what they were I said, "What are we talking about?"
Right. But see, that to me is great.
I'm sorry.
That's what it should be more. That's what.
And in fact, I saw on Twitter someone, Adam Schefter, daydreaming at work.
Oh,
daydreaming. Definitely not daydreaming, but just
Adam Schefter hasn't slept in 4 days, and he's breaking every story.
This has been, to me, watching you work, and Adam and I go way back, all the way back to my Denver days when he worked for the Denver Post, and we used to call him Scoop because he had every story, 2 weeks before anybody else had every story. Adam is he's the consummate professional. He's great. He's so much fun to watch. But Wingo and I are on the set during breaks, and we're coming up with Christmas-themed songs for Schefter because this is his time of year. It's beginning to look a lot like Schefter. You know, I mean, that's all he does is break stories, and he's constantly, your thumbs have got to be worn out, my friend.
The league you're starting at 4 o'clock, and you know some of these moves that are coming down, and you know that others are going to be coming down, and you got to check on these other moves, and it's all coming together at once. And all of a sudden, all these trades are popping up out of nowhere. And in the midst of all this, I had no idea that we had the Insider set, the NFL Live set. Like, I had no idea. We had never had that arrangement in that studio before. Everyone walks out. So usually it was just the Insider show. And all of a sudden, we got, like, our whole NFL crew on ESPN from 3 to 6. I'm like, when did this happen? I must have missed this. I didn't know what was happening until we sat down to start the show.
Well, it was great to watch. But let's get back to the stuff that's going on here, obviously. Mike and Mike, Stink is in the goal, like Schefter is here. I got 3 guys that have not we haven't seen happen yet, and let's get to those. Let's start with the easiest one. Andre Johnson having dinner with everybody in Indianapolis last night. Is it as simple as that he's going to sign with the Colts? Because if he does, with the acquisitions of Gore and then Andre Johnson, who I think at this stage is a big step up from where Reggie Wayne is at this point, I love Indy's offseason.
Well, I'll say this, that it's hard to imagine that Andre Johnson is going to take his very first trip with Frank Gore on Jim Irsay's private plane and not come out of that building with a deal. Now, the Colts are very private and very secretive about all this stuff. So they don't like when word seeps out about certain deals, but they've been very tight-lipped about the Andre Johnson situation. I think, my guess, and it's a guess, is that at some point Jim Irsay will get on Twitter and announce that Andre Johnson has agreed to wear the horseshoe.
All right, if they do, then I absolutely love their offseason right now. They were already finished, if you will, second in the AFC by getting to the AFC Championship game, and I will love what they have done. Then, obviously, a huge one in all of this is DeMarco Murray. Yeah. So reports out of Dallas that he and Jason Garrett met at the Mavericks game last night. We know he was at the basketball game last night. We saw reports during your special yesterday. Adam Kaplan was talking about Philadelphia jumping in with interest. What is the latest on DeMarco Murray?
I think there are a few teams out there that have been charting DeMarco Murray's progress, and we're waiting to see whether or not they do something. The Eagles, maybe. The Raiders, maybe. The Buccaneers, maybe. The Jaguars. There's a lot of maybes out there. We don't know if any one team is going to really step up and make a real push for DeMarco Murray. I think in the end, I want to believe that Jerry Jones is a smart enough businessman. He's probably trying to play this just the right way. Like, they've had limited contact until Monday night. They had not had any contact in almost a week. And I think DeMarco Murray is clearly irritated by the whole situation. They're trying to wait for the Cowboys to step forward with a big-time offer and bring him back to where he should be. And there's a lot of tension in the air right now. I think Dallas can offer more guaranteed money. I think they've got the no state income tax there in Texas. There's a lot of advantages the Cowboys have. And he'd like to be there. And until one of these other teams that we've mentioned steps up and really makes a worthwhile offer, we don't know how it's going to shake out. I still would guess in the end that he winds up back in Dallas. But, again, there's a lot to be played out here before DeMarco Murray finds a home. I don't know that it's
when you say a lot to be played out, though, I mean, the timing, it doesn't take 3 weeks for this stuff to happen.
I know that, but I think what happens is the league year kicks off at 4 o'clock, and people just think automatically that every move is going to happen.
Right.
And inevitably, in every free agent year, there are certain players that stay on the market a little bit longer in certain positions. And the one position that always seems to linger, especially in recent years, is the running back position.
Right.
So we've got out there guys right now like DeMarco Murray, Reggie Bush, who's going to be visiting San Francisco today, C.J. Spiller, Ryan Matthews, D'Angelo Williams. I mean, there are a lot of running backs, and there are not a lot of teams that need running backs. So these running backs want to make some money, and there's not a lot of money out there. So it leads to a stalemate where they're not rushing to go take work.
And now let me ask one more here, and that is, to me, the biggest move of the day as far as the most impactful was Jimmy Graham going to Seattle. To me, that is an unbelievable acquisition for a team that's exactly what they needed. I know they gave up a lot for him, but to me, that's a magnificent acquisition. But if New Orleans is going to unload him, you start to hear and it's just rumor stuff. It's just talk stuff. That, you know what, maybe they move Drew Brees. Is there any conceivable chance they move Drew Brees?
I don't see it. And it came up on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just probably speculation stuff. No, I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's speculation. Like, and the fact that we're talking about, to me, it should not come up. He's there. Look, they were a 7-9 team last year. They were going to make moves. And Jimmy Graham, if you look at his numbers in the last 5 games, they were pedestrian. He had some drops, 20 receptions, 219 yards, 1 touchdown. They said they were going to make changes. So in this trade, Jimmy Graham, is one of my favorite players in the league to watch. He's unbelievable, right? But they get back a 2-time Pro Bowl center on an offensive line that needed help. They get back a first-round draft pick, and much like the Eagles with LaShawn McCoy, they free up and get rid of the 4-year, $40 million contract, so they have more room to go make moves. Like today, they have Tramon Williams, the Packers cornerback, and Brandon Browner, the former Patriots cornerback, in New Orleans. So you know they're trying to sign some cornerbacks there. They can make other moves with the money that they freed up from getting rid of Jimmy Graham, in addition to getting back the first-round pick, in addition to getting back the Pro Bowl center. But you give up a great player in Jimmy Graham. Great player.
We spent 3 hours on TV yesterday, and I know it was fast and furious for the 3 days leading up to the 4 o'clock deadline.
Last week was crazy.
Was it the craziest 4 o'clock start of the new year for you in the history of doing this?
Well, it was the most unusual start of the new year. You never see 3 big trades go off in a 10-minute span where 2 of the 3 best tight ends in the league are changing teams. Jimmy Graham's in Seattle. Julius Thomas is in Jacksonville. Denver brings in Owen Daniels to help stop the bleeding there in Denver. It was wild. Like, there have been bigger names, and there have been so many moves made over the last week that it sort of diffused some of the action of the free agent names and signings yesterday. But you never seen 3 trades like that come down. Bang, 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 bang.
One guy that's still out there that really intrigues me because I think he's an outstanding player, probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves, Terrence Knighton, pot roast. Right now he's basically said, I'm not coming back to Denver.
I'm not going to Oakland.
I'm not going to Oakland. Where do you see him fitting? Because he's one of the great run stuffers, and he's far niftier an athlete than people give him credit for.
No, he's a tremendous player. And, again, these are the things sometimes where a team will lose a defensive tackle and all of a sudden he steps in. I would have thought a team like Washington might have had some interest. They signed Stephen Paea. How do you pronounce it? The P-E-A?
Paea or something like that. Yeah.
Maybe Pay, whatever it is. But he signed with Washington, so that takes away that opportunity. I would think that maybe Indianapolis might have some interest. I don't know where that's going to go. I think most people had him pegged to go with Jack Del Rio in Oakland, and we know that's not going to happen.
Mike and Mike.
All right, and we're going 4 wide here with Adam Schefter in our studio, Bill Polian in our studio, talking about NFL free agency and a trading bonanza yesterday that included Darrelle Revis signing with the Jets, $39 million guaranteed dollars in that deal. Congratulations, Valparaiso, Robert Morris, Gonzaga, and North Dakota State. They're all going to the NCAA tournament. And the Cavs smashed the Mavs last night, 127-94. LeBron James now the all-time assist leader in Cleveland Cavaliers history. And SportsCenter with Mike and Mike is brought to you by Scott's. It's that time of year. Who's the number 1 seed going to be? If you're talking about grass seed, it's the same every year. Scott's Turf Builder grass seed. Grow quicker, thicker, greener grass. Guaranteed. Learn more at Scotts.com. Again, our insider extraordinaire, Adam Schefter, is in our studio, and joining us now is our front office insider, the pending Hall of Famer, if you will, Bill Polian, who is here. So, guys, let's just go through all of this. And, Bill, I'll start with you. You are a man who made his living building football teams for a really long time. Chip Kelly has everyone in the football world scratching their heads. Can you explain to us what Chip Kelly is doing in Philadelphia in a way that it'll make it make sense?
Well, let's start with Bradford. First of all, let me back up. Chip has a blueprint, and he's lived in the world of college recruiting where he's been able to go out and point at a guy and say, I think this guy can make it. I can plug him into my system. And he's now had 2 years to operate that system and see how it works in the NFL. And so clearly he made a decision that Bradford was the kind of guy that can operate his system effectively. We'll talk. I don't want to digress here, but he has great faith in his sports science people. So they believe that they can get injured players back up and going fast and maybe prevent injury. Now, there's some that you can't prevent, but there are others that you can. And they've had pretty good success doing it. So I think they're less concerned about Bradford's injury than perhaps I would be because they believe in their strength and conditioning system.
For the record, they lost their starting quarterback each of the last 2 seasons. But we digress.
But the fact of the matter is they believe in Bradford, so they made the deal. the terms of the deal are immaterial if he plays well. There's only one issue. It is that he has an expiring contract. And so they're faced with a guy who they're going to have to renegotiate with if he in fact is the guy. But they believe he is. So they're going ahead. They need a running back because they traded Shady McCoy. They probably felt his cap number was too high for the kind of production they were getting from him. And he's at a position that declines at a relatively early age because there's a lot of tread on those tires. So, and they have Darren Sproles, who's a similar back. So it made sense for them to go after a power back, and they're probably still looking to do that. And then, yesterday we took a snapshot, and we all get caught up in the chase, and we act like the season ended yesterday. It doesn't. On May 15th, we'll have a very good idea of what Chip Kelly's team is going to look like. Until then, we won't. And that's the same for the New York Jets and everybody else that was involved.
Fascinating, Bill. So you go ahead, Sting.
Well, I just want to ask him because he mentioned something yesterday on the show that I found intriguing, and that was Friday money. Right? You mentioned, explain Friday money and what you mean by that.
Well, Friday could be Sunday, too. But the fact of the matter is that the first week of free agency, the big money goes out the door. After that, the balloon breaks, and you're down back into a little more than token signing bonuses and perhaps minimum salaries. So if you're going to get big money, you probably should get it in the first week.
First 48, 72 hours.
Well, yeah, it can go through the weekend because people have to take visits and things of that nature. But bottom line is you better get it in the first week. So DeMarco Murray, for example, whose agent, I'm told, kind of set the bar a little too high to get people interested right off the bat, is now in a position where he's, it's time to make a decision. Yeah, well, right? I don't know that he's scrambling yet, but it's time to get real and see what the market is.
Well, Schefter just ran through a whole bunch of running backs that are out there, and I guess the question is, how much better is DeMarco Murray thought to be? Look, did he have a phenomenal year? Yes, he does have a little injury history. He was running behind a great offensive line with a good quarterback. How much better is he, from a dollar standpoint, Schefter, than a lot of the other names you just ran through who are also very good NFL running backs?
That's up for each team to decide. And, again, I think there's just a glut at the position, and it's supply and demand. And because there are so many backs and because the importance of the position hasn't been devalued, but there are so many of them that they're not being paid the way they once were.
Well, you got to use two. That's the right. issue. No one can take the pounding for a full season or seasons as the number one guy. So
but DeMarco did.
Two. So he did last year. So divide that money in half. The position hasn't been devalued. That's a falsity.
A myth.
People are putting out there. That's not true. But the fact is, if you have to pay him, you pay two. You can't pay him like one.
Right.
Got it?
Right.
So now, in DeMarco's case, really good player. Here's a statistic that bothers everybody that we showed yesterday on a graphic. No player who's had the amount of carries he's had has come back the following couple of years and been as productive. So that's a little worry for people. Still, he's a great back.
Right.
There's no question about it. He's a great back.
So let me stay with that position. So you would look at that. If there's one guy that can do it, and it's proven they can do it over the year, it's Adrian Peterson. What's the word on Adrian Peterson? Because the longer this thing lingers with Minnesota, it just feels to me like something's happening behind the scenes.
I just think it's been unusually quiet, and I think they're trying to get everything worked out before anybody says anything one way or another, whether the Vikings can bring him back, whether they move on from him through a trade, whether they move on from him through release, whatever it is. But he's been meeting with the Will family. He's been meeting with Vikings executives. He's been talking to the NFL. It's gone on and on and on. And I think there's a lot of issues that have to be worked out here, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it.
Here's the issue, the central core of the issue. One, he's got a contract that's enforceable, and the Minnesota Vikings can enforce it. They own it, and they decide where he goes. He doesn't decide where he goes. Two, the league is in limbo because of the judge's decision as to what happens with his suspension. And until they do something, the picture is really not clarified, or until the Players Association, there'll be an appeal. I stand corrected. There's an appeal in the 8th Circuit Court in Minnesota. So until that court rules, nobody quite knows what the situation is. The case has been remanded by the lower court, which means it's back in the league's jurisdiction. So, bottom line, until the suspension situation is clarified, clubs really don't know, including the Vikings, what's going to happen. Secondly, the Vikings own his rights, period. They have an enforceable contract, so he can't walk away no matter what he or people representing him say, unless he's willing to retire from football. And three, whether or not the Vikings do something with him is probably determined by how the Wilf family feels about bringing him back into that community. But that is their issue. The other two issues have to be dealt with in a forthright manner before something can happen. So it's reasonable to assume that this quietness is there because everybody's working through these problems.
Okay, so what would be your guess in the end how this works out, Bill?
Well, I don't know how the league's going to deal with the suspension. I know he's a great player. I know he's on the back end of his career. I know he's highly paid. His decision is, do I want to not play football or do I want to try and force a trade and not get the same amount of money that I'm due to make from the Vikings? That's point one on his part. On the Vikings' part, it's, do we want to bring him back into this market given what's happened? Right. Bottom line, they own his rights. Rick Spielman told me, hey, he's got a contract. He's 100% right. Until the Vikings make a decision, nothing can happen.
Quick final question for you, Bill. We have to let you go, and Schefter will continue with some insight for us in another moment. But quarterbacks get paid a lot of money in the NFL, and the salary cap is a complication. You have built great football teams for a long time under different salary cap circumstances. Can you win championships in the NFL paying defensive tackles and cornerbacks, and Dominican Sue, Darrelle Revis, quarterback kind of money? Does that work in this? Because people are telling me, Greeny, they overpaid for Darrelle Revis. A lot of people are going to say that about Sue in Miami. Did they overpay for those guys?
Not for great players, not for difference makers. You win with difference makers.
Yeah.
You don't win with guys named Joe. You win with difference makers.
At any position.
Yes, as many as you can get. And obviously you can't have 22. The salary cap mitigates against that. But the fact of the matter is Darrelle Revis is a great player who still has some good years left. Dominican Sue is at the peak of his career. He's the best player in his position at the league. Why wouldn't you want him?
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone would want him. I guess the question is, do you want to eat up that sizable a chunk?
Well, who are the Jets paying? They're certainly not paying the quarterback. He shouldn't be paid.
Right.
Miami's quarterback is probably due to be paid, but he's not there yet. So, Darrelle Revis is the best player on the Jets, is he not?
Oh, by far.
Therefore, he should be the highest paid. Dominican Sue is the best player on the Dolphins, is he not?
He is.
Correct. He should be the highest paid.
This is why he's the Frank Lloyd Wright of the National Football League. We'll let you run, Bill. Thanks a million. You'll see him all over ESPN all day today. NFL Insiders and NFL Live today are going to be on ESPN2 because there's college basketball on
really?
ESPN.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yes, but everyone should be watching. I know I will be. 3 o'clock Eastern today on ESPN2, and you'll see Schefter and Bill and everybody on SportsCenter as the day continues as well.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
I get a text about this Jimmy Graham stuff. We've been trying to track it down all afternoon. We were on the phone with various people getting denials and lies and whatnot. And I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody, and Susie comes to me as she's talking with Bill Polian about a free agent. I've never had this happen on TV ever. And she said, and Adam, what are your thoughts? And I had no idea. Right? No, I was immersed in my own world. I had no idea what they were I said, what are we talking about?
See, that's why I loved yesterday's special. When that happens on Mike and Mike, half the time Golick is not listening to me, but he's not doing anything else.
Right.
He generally just zones out and goes into his own little world, and then I'll ask him his opinion, and he's obviously not paying attention. Mike and Mike Stink is in for Golick. Schefter is here. Very quickly, Common Sense Bob tweets at us, if Mariota really wants to go to the Eagles that badly, can he do an Eli Manning and refuse to sign with other teams that want to draft him? That might work if the Eagles were drafting 3rd. It's not going to work with the Eagles drafting 20th.
No,
right?
What are you going to do? The player has very, very few rights in a case like that. If you know you're going to be the number 1 pick, yeah, you can do that. But that's not Marcus Mariota's MO. That's not going to happen.
Right. I agree completely. Okay. So Schefter is here again. NFL Live and NFL Insiders today starting 3 Eastern. They'll be on ESPN2. What are we working on today? Obviously, some big names still out there. DeMarco Murray, Andre Johnson, some of this stuff. What is
Andre
hot
Johnson's
right now?
in Indianapolis. We'll wait to see whether that gets done. My guess would be it does, but we do not know, and the Colts want to announce it and make a big deal of it, which it will be if and when they do get that done. Percy Harvin's going to be visiting the Buffalo Bills later this afternoon. That'll be an interesting visit. The Saints have a couple of cornerbacks in the building. Packers cornerback Tremont Williams. The Patriots former cornerback Brandon Browner. Can you imagine if the Patriots lose both? And this is like the New England Patriots. They already have gone and begun spending the money that they're going to save from losing Darrelle Revis. Yesterday, sneaky move bringing Brandon Gibson, formerly the Dolphins, wide receiver on a minimum deal. That's such a Patriot move. Jabal Sheard, the Cleveland Browns defensive lineman, he's going to be visiting the New England Patriots. And if you can't have Darrelle Revis, maybe you put the money into your front seven instead. Jabal Sheard would be a guy that would fit right into there. The running backs are still on the market. Everybody will wait to see whether DeMarco Murray winds up somewhere. Ryan Matthews, Mike Garafolo said this morning, likely to sign in Philadelphia. Been told similar information. We'll see if Ryan Matthews is the guy with the Eagles. And so we're now on day 2, and Bill talked about the price of free agents. I think the way I've always said it is the first 2-3 days of free agency, it's like shopping at Neiman Marcus. After that, it's Filene's basement, clear out sales, players go on sale, the prices drop. If the deals are not done by Thursday or Friday, that's when you begin to see reductions.
Shear is one of those guys, sneaky good player,
Very good player.
out of Cleveland. So a lot of people don't know who that guy is, but a very good player coming out of Cleveland. AFC East or NFC West, which one for you is the most intriguing with the moves that were made in those two divisions?
Well, I think you look at the NFC West, everybody looks at the Niners, and there's been so much turnover there. But the AFC East has gotten really interesting. It's like Jet disciples all over the place. You got Mike Tannenbaum in Miami, Rex Ryan in Buffalo, the new regime in New York with the Jets. Everybody's trying to bring down the New England Patriots, who lose their star cornerback, who take a hit there. And it's also very interesting that they did not pick up the option on Brandon Browner's contract, so that got overlooked on a day when they lost Revis. So they lose Revis and Browner, their two starting cornerbacks, and you take a look at their other players now. They're going to have to depend on Malcolm Butler, the Super Bowl hero, Kyle Arrington, Alfonso Denner. So they've got some young cornerbacks now, and I think, like I said, I think you're going to see them make some moves on the front seven here that use some of the money that would have gone to Revis.
They did re-sign Devin McCourty, and then the guy in the front seven I was talking with Bill Polian about, you vacate that middle with Vince Wilfork. Do you plug Pot Roast in there? Do you plug Terrence Knight in there?
Well, he's going to be visiting Washington today.
Right, yeah, you told me that.
And we've not heard Knighton's name come up in connection to New England for whatever reason. Washington will get the first crack. Washington's usually pretty persuasive in getting guys in.
No one ever leaves there.
Well, people do leave there, but it does happen. But, Brandon Brown is supposed to visit there after the Saints if he gets out of New Orleans. And it's a situation where last year they wanted Brandon Browner, so they're back to the Brandon Browner situation again.
Mike and Mike, our Sports Center, brought to you by Werner. If you haven't heard, Werner came out with a brand new style of ladder called the Podium. If you're afraid of heights, this one is for you. Once you step on the Podium, you'll see what safety feels like. Check it out at WernerPodium.com. You mentioned Percy Harvin. Is he going to get big money? Harvin is a guy, the Jets let him go yesterday. I was perfectly on board with that. We all know the history with Harvin.
What's big money? What's big money to you?
Well, he was scheduled to make, 10.5
He's not going to make anywhere close to that right now.
I guess that's what I was at.
No, so then he's not. What do I think that number will come in at in the end ultimately? Depends on the team, and it depends on where he's going. If he's going to a place like Buffalo, it'll be a little bit more. If he's going to a place like New England, it'll probably be a little bit less, would be my guess.
What would you think, Stink, if Buffalo adds Shady McCoy and Percy Harvin? You're talking about...
And Richie Incognito.
And Incognito is a blocker, but I'm talking about two fast guys. We're talking about, adding enormous amounts of team speed on the offensive side.
Well, obviously, Rex Ryan has dealt with Percy Harvin, although be it a short time. Yeah. The big knock on Percy is, mercurial, up and down, a guy that you have to manage from an ego standpoint or a trouble standpoint. But Rex has had that guy. He understands that guy. And as far as dynamic athletes are concerned, I mean, you could argue those are two of the most dynamic athletes in this league right now when you're talking Shady McCoy and Percy Harvin.
I think it's interesting that Percy Harvin, his first visit will be to the team that he was just with, the guys that know him. Wide receiver coach knows him, the head coach knows him, and they want him in there today, and they're going to get Percy Harvin in there today. And, by the way, they also had Charles Clay, the Dolphins tight end, who has a transition tag, Jerome Felton, the running back, the blocking back, who could be the blocking back for Shady McCoy. I would think a deal gets done with the Buffalo Bills there today as well.
Ryan Clark was tweeting massive praise about Clay. He loves him. He was talking about how good he thinks that guy is. He said if Buffalo gets him, I already have Buffalo in the playoffs based on the acquisition of McCoy. If they get Harvin and Clay, they could have a dynamic offense to go with what I'm predicting will be the best defense in football.
They have a quarterback situation, too, and they signed Castle.
Well,
what's
there was
the word on that?
yesterday where he was going to pass his physical. That went on for a while, and he didn't pass until early in the evening, and we were getting little buzzwords yesterday that he may not pass the physical, and while that was going on, I think they were lining up something with Matt Moore to step in if Matt Castle did not pass that physical, but he did pass. So the Matt Moore deal went by the wayside in Buffalo.
And Castle is in Buffalo, and that's
Castle done.
Deal. Okay.
Mike and Mike.
On Sunday night, after all of the selection special analysis is done on ESPN, ESPN Films 30 for 30 will debut our new film called I Hate Christian Laettner. It's this coming Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, and it is the story of Christian Laettner, who had one of the great college careers of all time, 4 Final Fours, 2 national championships, made maybe the most famous shot in college basketball history, and was the leader and sort of most visible figure on the most polarizing college basketball team I can think of. Half of America loved you guys, and half America was rooting like crazy to see you guys lose. It's our pleasure to welcome Christian Laettner to our studio. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, I was saying to you during the break, I will never forget where I was sitting watching that shot go in. I was covering an NBA game, actually, in Chicago, and there was a TV on in the press box, and not one person in that room was watching the game we were covering. Everybody was watching Duke, Kentucky. So before we get to anything else, do you consider that to be the greatest college basketball game ever played? It's the greatest game I ever saw. Do you consider it the greatest game?
You know, I don't know. I didn't see all the games when I was growing up. So from the 80s and the 70s, I didn't see all those games. But you might have to ask someone who's a lot older than me. But it's the greatest game that I've seen since then. And not just because of the way Duke played or the way I played. It was a great game because of the way Kentucky played. And two great teams matched up. It was a high-powered offensive game, and every time I see it now, it's literally like an NBA game. So fast, so many points scored, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of it.
Yeah, Christian Laettner didn't miss a shot in that game. Perfect both from the foul line and from the field, including, of course, the legendary shot on the cross-court pass, all the way down the court pass from Grant Hill. So let me ask you this to start the conversation. I haven't seen the film yet. I'm looking. I know you had the premiere last night in New York. I'm dying to see it. Why do you think your team, and you in particular, were as polarizing as you were?
Well, if you were not a Duke fan from 89 to 92, and every Final Four, every March Madness, you're seeing us there for 4 years in a row, and you're seeing my face on the screen for 4 years in a row, you might get tired of seeing my face so often. And then, you know, sometimes in life this weird thing happens where people who have success, people get tired of it. And I'm not going to say jealousy or envy, but I will say maybe they get tired of seeing your face. And we were there 4 years in a row, and I played in the national championship game 3 years in a row. So if you're not a Duke fan, I can understand where that comes from.
These 30 for 30s are tremendous. Yeah. They're so much fun to sit down and watch, and I think this may be the greatest title I've ever seen. I Hate Christian Laettner. How much do you relish the fact that you were so hated? Because it seemed to me like, at watching you from afar, that you embraced the hate that people had for you.
Well, I don't relish it, and you don't set out in life trying to have people hate you or dislike you. But there's only so much you can do with it, and you're not going to lose sleep over it, and you're not going to cry over it. So you got to try to use it and spin it to your advantage in some way if you can. So I try to let it fuel me and motivate me to play harder and play better. And that's really all you can do with it. Because if you don't spin it and use it that way, then you're going to lose sleep over it.
Christian Laettner is in our studio. It's not the only legendary shot that he hit, the shot that beat UConn that one year that put you guys in the Final Four. I mean, so many big shots. What do you think it was about you that you had the ability to do that? In those moments, can you describe how you felt? I remember asking Tiger Woods once about a putt that he had to make to send the U.S. Open into a playoff. And he said he never for 1 second thought about the consequences. He just thought about the process. In those big moments, those huge shots, were you thinking about the consequences? Were you thinking about the process? Take me into your head in those moments.
Well, I think it's a two-part answer. The first part is that I have an older brother, and every time we competed against each other in everything, hockey, basketball, baseball, Nerf ball, anything, you know, at the end of the game, he would always say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we were always goofing around from age of 5 until 15 doing stuff like that. And then another part of it is when I was at Duke, after practice, a coach would grab me and we'd go do some extra shooting for about 15 minutes. And before he released me to the locker room to take my shower for the day, he would say, run to half court, come back and take your last shot, and he would count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So just a little added pressure for that last little shot to get you used to taking a buzzer beater shot like that. So I did it my whole childhood. I did it when I was at Duke. And then in terms of what you're talking about at Tiger Woods and what's going on in your mind, I always just wanted to win, and I wanted to win for my team, for my fan base. So I think my thoughts were very pure. You know, I'm not saying, I want to hit this shot and I want to win. I was saying to myself, I don't want this to be my last game with Bobby Hurley. I don't want this to be my last game with Grant Hill. So I think that freed me up in terms of not feeling any stress and pressure in those situations.
I Hate Christian Laettner is the film that debuts Sunday night on ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Laettner B-Ball. He's on Facebook, the Christian Laettner Basketball Academy, and you can also check out The Muskie Life on Twitter and Facebook. Christian is the CEO. We'll talk about that in a second. One thing I've always wondered, because I think those Duke teams are among the last great teams where everybody stayed for 4 years. And college basketball, at least for me as a fan, I loved the sport. It's lost a great deal because you don't have the repetition. You don't see Christian Laettner in there 4 years in a row and Grant Hill. If you were 20 years younger, do you think you would have left Duke after 1 year?
Not after 1 year, but maybe after my junior year, after I experienced some success and we won a championship. Sure, I might have left. Because it seems like that's what people are doing more nowadays. But then there's a part of me that said I wouldn't have, because I just loved that environment, loved playing for Coach K, and loved being on the Duke program. So I still might have stayed for my senior year.
And what I'm sorry, Mark, there's one other thing I've always wanted to ask you about, and I haven't heard you talk about it a lot, and many people don't remember this, is that you were on the first dream team. They took one college player. They took the very best players in the NBA, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, on it went, and they took one college player, and that was you. What was that experience like at Barcelona?
It was the greatest thing in the world. Growing up, you dream of being an Olympian, and then to be an Olympian with those 11 guys was just the greatest thing in the world. And the thing that I appreciated and enjoyed the most is that after every practice, I would grab one or two of them, and we'd go down to the other end of the court and play one-on-one. And Larry Bird had some back issues, so he would use me as like his little practice dummy to stay up to speed. And those are the memories I'll never forget, is playing one-on-one with those guys.
One of the most revered guys in sports, one of the most respected, Coach K. You mentioned Coach K. Give me some insight into your 4 years at Duke, what he was like and how he mentored you as a player and as a person, more importantly.
He's so great at balancing two things. He's great at making you feel like he loves you and you're part of his family and you're very, very important to him. Then at the same time, he's very good at holding you accountable and having high expectations for you and letting you know that you must play this way for him. If you don't, you're not going to be a part of the program. So it's a very fine line he walks, but God, you feel so important when you're on his team, but at the same time, you feel like he's watching over you, and if you play the right way, we're going to have success, and that's his strength.
Tell us about what you're doing today. You had a long career in the NBA, and some guys remain very visible, and then some guys not as much. What is Christian Laettner doing today?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a husband and I'm a father, and I have 3 kids, and I just love being very active in my kids' lives. And then I do have 2 companies. The first company is Christian Laettner Basketball Academy. I've been running that for about 5 years now. I go all over the country and work with kids. The main thing I do is I connect with high schools, and then we do a whole weekend of events. And some of the money that I raise for that weekend, I give back to the athletic school department budget. So that's a lot of fun for me. My mother was a teacher. My father was a coach. So it makes me feel good to give back to high schools. And then my second company is called The Muskie Life, and it's just a company all revolved around muskie fishing. I'm very much an outdoorsman. I love to hunt and snowboard and fish. So that's what I do. And if you don't know what a muskie is, you got to check it out on Facebook, The Muskie Life on Facebook. And so everything I do is up in muskie states, and I do basketball. And then when I'm not on the court, I go muskie fishing.
Sounds like a good life to me. I don't know. I'm not much of a fisherman, but
I like to catch. I grew up in Alaska, and I don't fish. I like to catch. I don't like to fish. If I'm catching, maybe if I go with you, I could catch. but I'm not real good at it.
Yeah, well, we got to fish for like perch and sunnies then if you're just a catcher.
Okay.
That's flounder, whatever the case may be. Again, Christian Laettner, the film I Hate Christian Laettner. It premieres Sunday night, 9 Eastern on ESPN. Really looking forward to this. I know you'll be around ESPN a lot today. It's really good to meet you in person. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Bob.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike. Werner, the official ladder of the NCAA basketball championships and the official ladder of professional contractors everywhere. Werner, #1 in ladders.